Hi YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So in this video we're taking a look at a big set. Yes, the Track Team Engines pack. Now this is a push along pack that I have seen on shelves recently. I've been looking at it because as you've probably seen if you watch my channel for a while, I do quite like some of the variations that we're getting in terms of the facial expressions for these all engines go push along diecast metal engines, and that's why I've been trying to pick up some of the variants that I think are personally interesting. This set is interesting to me because it contains a normal Bruno, and if you've been watching my channel, you know I have not been able to find Bruno. I don't think he's been released in Australia, so I did review for Christmas, the last Christmas that's just gone, the Shivery Delivery set, which had a snowy Bruno in it, but this set also comes with just a normal standard Bruno. Well, we're going to see if it's normal in a minute, and a bunch of other characters, all of whom I have already collected, but they do all have facial expressions and some deco differences. So after seeing all the brand new Thomas stock in the shops, I caved, and in this video we're going to do it's going to be quite perhaps a lengthy video, in that we're going to do a comparison between what you get if you purchase this pack here as a starter set to your Thomas engines, all engines go adventure, and what you would get, and also what you would spend, importantly, if you were to pick up all of the engines in this box individually. It's going to be quite an interesting video, and I think it's really raised some interesting questions about Mattel's pricing strategy. So what are you waiting for? Let's do it. So here is the box of this pack. So it doesn't quite fit in the frame. You can see we get the nice Thomas & Friends logo. We can see immediately all the engines that are included. 10 engines, locomotives. Engines and locomotives. Interesting to call Bruno that. The Track Team Engines pack. Again, you can see it's one of the multilingual packages. Nothing really that exciting. We've got more languages on the top. Got some pictures of the engines on the side. Picture of Thomas, and then again we've got a list of the characters included, which is I guess nice, and this art that shows all of the like a CGI animated version of all the characters. I really like that Thomas face as a side note. Does it do a great job of describing what you actually get inside? I don't know. And again, you can see the look for our show thing again, which is also what was on the minis packet. So I mean, okay, sure, but like, I don't know. I haven't been a big fan of these packages. They don't really inspire me necessarily. I don't think to want to play with what's inside. But anyway, that's what we got for the packaging. And then for the bottom, this is the thing that you care about. You can see we've just got the usual blah, 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 legal, legal, legal. And thankfully, yes, we do have the cool little barcode that shows Thomas there. So what are we waiting for? Let's crack these all open and take a look. So you can immediately see when you unpack this, you get quite a lot of stuff. It's quite a big character pack. So firstly, I'm going to take a brief look at these engines, and then we'll do a brief comparison to their single pack counterparts. So first of all, we're going to start with Nia, going from the way that the engines are packaged, top to bottom, left to right. Yep. Fine version of Nia. You may have already noticed that some of the details from her normal, quote-unquote normal model are missing, particularly on the wheels. We'll talk about that in more detail further down in the video. I like this face. I think it's a good face. It's excited. It's animated. She looks like she's having a good time. I'm happy with that face choice. Yeah, this is a perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable Nia. The next one in the pack was Kana. And again, another great face. I feel like this is exactly the kind of face we see her have in the show. She's having a race. She's having a think. You know, it's a good face. And again, unlike the busy books, the important detail is that windscreen. And I think actually this is like, how you talk about what important details does Thomas have. There's different characters, there's certain defining features. I think for Kana, for me, that windscreen is kind of like one of her defining features, and that's one of the reasons why I think the busy book version looked so weird. But again, you can see the wheels are naked perhaps, so I'm going to come back and talk about that in a minute. Next one in the pack is Thomas. This face is interesting. I don't know if I love it. I'm still not totally sold that the faces they've got for Thomas on these sets are quite capturing how he looks in the show. It's close, but it's not quite right. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one. Don't love it. It's fine. It's not bad by any means. I just don't know if I love it as much as the Nia and Kana ones really spoke to me. And again, we've got just the plain old blue wheels. And see here we have got Bruno in the classic, in his, what I understand is much more classic colors. This is nice. He's quite a substantial character, actually. There's quite a lot of weight there. He feels very sturdy. We've talked about his details briefly in the Shivery Delivery video, but even his classic design, or the standard design, he looks really good. I think that's a nice face. It's relatively neutral, but it's different from the classic or the normal version of him, which I'll put up on the camera because I don't have, obviously, a version to compare it to when we get to that part of the video. Otherwise, there are all the details. Yeah, he's a nice character, and again, while he's, it's obviously an American design, it's visually interesting. Again, a good inclusion, given they seem to be pushing him as a main character in Season 2. Here's Percy. Again, I don't know if this face properly captures Percy in terms of the way his face is done in the show, but I think it's exactly the kind of face that Percy would pull, if that makes sense. So it's very in character. I just don't know if the details quite line up with how I think they should in my mind, but I haven't watched a lot of the show, so it may be that he pulls this exact face and I just haven't seen that episode. Otherwise, again, standard details, standard Percy. We've already talked about that in previous reviews. The next one we come to is good old Gordon. It's great to be Gordon, and this is fantastic. This is another great Gordon face. Yes, he absolutely makes this in the show. This is his, oh my goodness, why am I in this show? This is a disaster. These kids are going to be the end of me face. So that is really, really nice. I like that. And you may have seen he's got some bonus details, which the other version does not have. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But that face, that's a winner. And then just the bottom, in case you care about seeing that. The next one we've got is Diesel. And again, another great Diesel. The faces they've been giving the toys for Diesel have just been spot on. This one is great. It's so scheming. It's so, yeah, perfect. They nailed it. They nailed it, and this decision to make the faces like this so they could use this flexibility, fantastic. I don't think, just given how Mattel seems to have no thoughts about anything that's mildly intelligent for the most part, I don't think they would have intentionally, when they did rebrand the show, had the thought of, oh, this will make it much easier for us to sell multiple versions of the same character that have different facial expressions. I don't think that would have been in anyone's the front of mind when they were coming up with the new show, but I am so glad whoever it was in the product development team said, hey, we've got a real opportunity here to change up the way we do the faces now with the new designs, because you could never have done this for the CGI faces. It would have looked really weird. You have to have that kind of 3D relief for the CGI faces, but because the whole change to a 2D animation, you can do this kind of stuff, and it's really, really good. I really like it. All right, now we come down to the back. We've got Carly. Again, a great Carly face. She looks really excited, very happy to be here. Yeah, it's fun. I love the buffer detailing on there, actually, too. It's very, very cool. Don't have it on the back, unfortunately. She has the same functionality, the two positions of the crane, and also that it twists, which is good. But otherwise, yes, that's what Carly looks like. Put her there. We get Sandy here. Again, I think this one is a bit of a weird face. I think Sandy does make a face like this in the show, but something about the mouth looks a little bit weird to me. That's okay. Not everyone has to like it. And she's got her little hook claw thingy coming out. Doesn't come with the bucket, so we don't get the bucket in this set. And you can see then otherwise we've got pretty much all the other details we've come to expect from Sandy. And last but not least, James, the red engine himself. Same thing with the wheels, with like the weird streakiness. And yeah, I think this is a good James face too. This is again, it's giving like, oh, here we go. Something stupid is about to happen, which is like the whole premise of All Engines Go. So I think that's good. It's a little bit conceited. Yeah, it's good. That's a good James face. I like it. Does he still have all the weird design quirks that I talked about? E.g. this weird boiler thing. Sure does, but he also now has an exciting face. So overall, I think this is a pretty good set. None of the characters don't belong. I think this is a great mix of characters for the show, given where I understand it's at and the characters that are featured relatively heavily. What we're going to do now is I'm going to pull out the normal, quote-unquote, standard, basic versions of these characters, and let's do a little comparison as to what the differences are. All right, so I've got the first half of the engines lined up here with their counterparts. So let's take a look first at the Nias. And you can see here that the main, and I think really the only difference, is the wheels. And this is going to be a recurring pattern across all of the engines. Yeah, see, this is a bit of a boring face. This is definitely giving more Nia as she appears in the All Engines Go show. You can see that what they have done, and I kind of had forgotten this, it's been a while since I've looked at these in detail, is that the original style for all of these All Engines Go engines was to have grey wheels with the colours printed on them and that little, like, effect that's there. What they've done in this set instead, is just giving them the colour of the wheels as on the inside so that it matches. So we've got the plain orange as opposed to the grey with the orange printing. This definitely looks more premium immediately because it's got more printing on it. But in terms of realism, does it make a difference? Let me know your thoughts. Because that is the only difference for those two. We get out, again, we get our Kanas out. I think the difference for her is somewhat less noticeable because her wheels are much smaller. But again, you can see they've gone for the approach of having the full colour. One thing they do seem to have improved is the finish. You can see here the finish on new Kana, my one I remember in my review talking about, it had these weird bubbles all over it, which seemed to be a problem with quite a few of them. So they've obviously refined their processes to make that not happen as much, but otherwise she is the same. And again, you know, comparing this face, yes, that's a Kana face, but this is a really expressive Kana face, and I much prefer this face. Coming to the main man, Thomas. So I will say, I think perhaps this face is better than this one. I found this one to be really weirdly generic. But it is what it is. And otherwise, again, you can see in terms of the details, it's the blue wheels. And it's funny because, for example, the Tomica ones just have the solid colored wheels. But something about seeing these All Engines Go ones with the solid wheels it's weirding me out. I don't know what it is, but something about it feels like it's not quite right. I don't have the original Bruno. A little picture of him will pop up in the corner there. But even just comparing him to the Chivalry Delivery one, you can see that the buffers, we've got the buffer detailing back and the painting between. And otherwise, we don't have that glitter grey, obviously, but we've got the buffer detailing on the back as well. So I'll let you make a call about which one you prefer. I obviously always love the Christmas ones, so, but I'm biased about that. And then again, we come to Percy, and it's the same thing. Details are all the same, except for the wheels. The wheels are the difference. And the question is, are the wheels in All Engines Go, particularly in these push-along engines, something which really sets them apart and is iconic to their design? Or is it just, it's a nice to have, but who really cares? And again, I think this is probably, again, the better Percy face than this one. The weird bags under the eyes, I think, throw this one off comparatively. So I'm going to get these ones out of the way, and let's take a look at the rest of the pack. All right, and now we've got the diesel comparison. And again, it's the wheels. It's the wheels. And again, I think this is a much better face. You really get the sense that these first wave faces were based on like concept art or preliminary art, whereas these are based, I think, probably literally from screen grabs of the show. They look much better, but the wheels. Let me know in the comments down below. What do we think? I'm leaving my thoughts right until the end. We come to Sandy. She's pretty much, again, almost the same. But again, the wheels. She's got just the pink wheels. And, actually, there is a print difference. So, this version of her, which is the individual packed version, has the solid light. This one has the clear light. I thought there was a clear on both. Much prefer the clear. I think the clear is much better. And interestingly, there's actually more detail. So I don't know if it's showing up on the camera very well. There's like a lens flare detail on the printing here. I think this one's kind of rubbed off a bit, but versus this is just yellow. It's just yellow. Whereas we've got the lens printing on here, which I think looks quite nice actually. I quite like that. But otherwise, yes, that is the Sandys together. Interestingly, we have that same lens flare detail on the two different Carlys as well. So otherwise, the printing is pretty much exactly the same. Again, it's the wheels. The wheels, it's always the wheels. Okay, not quite the same. You can see we've got on the original black painted buffers on the back, no painted buffers on this one. And then we come around to the front, we've just got the yellow painted buffers, whereas this one, they've been painted again with that reflective light. It kind of makes them look like lights I don't remember in the show if they're lights. I thought they were just buffers. But anyway, we've got that same printing, whether you think that's an upgrade or a downgrade. Might be a matter of personal preference. So there's a slight difference in printing on these two and the way they're designed, which is interesting. Then we come to Gordon. And again, so the faces. I think this is I like this Gordon face, but I like this one more. It's very expressive. And shockingly, we have buffer printing on Gordon now. So previously, no buffer printing. Now we've got the buffer printing. Gordon already did not have the special wheels, so that is no change. But you can see that we didn't get buffer printing on the back, unfortunately, or on the tender, on either of them. So Gordon, I think, is an improvement to his original model, no comparison, better face, and also buffer printing. And then lastly, and certainly not least, don't tell James that, we have the two Jameses, and again, the details pretty much exactly the same. Buffer detailing is on both, but I think, again, this is a much better all engines go James face than this one. This one, for some reason, he looks weirdly old and like grandpa for some whatever reason. And then again, we've got just the same thing with the buffers not being printed on the tender. So, are any of these engines an upgrade? Are they an upgrade in this pack versus their originals, or are they downgrades? Well, let's talk about price and see if that changes your mind. So we've done the comparisons. We've looked at the engines. And what is coming clear is that apart from Gordon, and perhaps Sandy, depending on how you class the upgrades, downgrades that she's got, all of these engines have less paint applications than the original individual releases. Now, when I first saw this set, and I first noticed these paint changes, I was quite annoyed. Because if you think about when is it, the most expensive to produce something, it's the most expensive to produce something the first time you make it, because you have to create the printing machines, you have to create the molds, you have to create your production line. But once you've got that, it's much easier to make minor changes, for example, like printing changes, like changing the faces, if you've done your process properly, than it is to create a whole new character. And so sometimes, the way a company justifies making a new character is they say, well, we can sell X many copies of the character like this, and we can sell X many copies of them in these variants, and altogether that will result in a profit. Other times, it feels like that these sets come along later after they've already made their money, and for example, minis. Would be pure profit now. There's no way they're still paying off, the molding machines for Thomas minis. It seems a bit opportunistic. I was thinking that this set may have been the latter, a bit opportunistic, given the downgrades that we see in terms of the print details. And then I did a price comparison, and I don't think it's that easy. So, in Australia, to buy all these engines separately, noting that Bruno has not been, as far as I'm aware, available separately, it will cost you about 78 Australian dollars if you're paying the recommended retail price for all the items. When you buy this pack, the recommended retail price, I think, is like $50, $55. It has been on sale for as low as $40. I pay the recommended retail price, which means that it is 28 Australian dollars cheaper to buy this set than it is to buy all these engines individually, if you can even find them individually, which obviously can sometimes be quite hard to do, given they have been staggered out in waves over the last couple of years. So, you are paying, on average, $2.80 Australian less per engine than you would if you bought them individually. And you get the benefit of being able to buy one box, no trauma, get all the main characters, give it to your kid, give it to your friend, whatever, and they all have, I think, quite fun facial expressions. And so with that in mind, I am actually of the view that this set is very good value. Yes, there are some changes to the way that some of the wheels are printed. It's not unprecedented. The tender engines have never had the painted wheels. They've always just had a solid color. So it's not like this is something that means that nothing's going to match anymore. And I think particularly when you consider the price that you get for this, being it actually is cheaper to buy them as a pack, when often we find, with these Thomas and Friends packs, sometimes it's actually just the same price as buying them all individually. I think it's really, I'm happy to say that the extra printing for these wheels probably is worth more, or probably is worth, less than $2.80. Probably costs them 50 cents, not even, to change the wheels. But they're giving me a much bigger discount than that. They're giving me a $2.80 discount on this Thomas when I buy it in the pack. So I think it really is quite a good value to pick up that set. And even though there are some downgrades, I think the downgrades are reflected in the price that the consumer pays. So, in short, I'm curious to know in your comments what your preferences are in terms of the printing on the wheels versus not, as well as the new faces that we get. I think pretty much all these faces are better than the originals. And I think also that there's actually quite a lot of value in this set because you get a lot of characters, you get a lot of useful, good characters, and you get them at a discount than if you tried to buy them from the stores individually, let alone if you had to try and buy them from eBay or import them, Bruno, because they're not available in Australia. So, after all of that, I think this set actually comes with a double thumbs up from me, which is not what I expected when I bought it. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, because that's all we have time for. This is already a very long video. Thanks for watching. This is Extreme Trains.